How many times have you puked in a stranger's bathroom? When you've had too much to drink at their party and got peer pressured into funneling 2 beers at once? If that doesn't ring a bell, it's likely you're under the age of 21. And I don't just mean that some of you might not be old enough to legally drink yet. I'm talking about how young people in general aren't partying the way that they used to. The house party was an integral part of my teenage development. Almost every weekend in high school, my friends and I would congregate in the group chat, running a status report of potential parties happening in the area. At some of these parties, the parents would be out of town, having no idea that a bunch of teenagers were about to storm their house with 30 packs of Natty Light and 4 Locos. But at others, mostly the wealthy families, the parents would pretend to act like nothing's going on, leaving themselves intentionally oblivious upstairs. It's been a while since I was in high school, 10 years to be exact, and a part of me had a gut feeling that young people are no longer experiencing the same party scene I was exposed to at their age. So acting on that hunch, I decided to create a poll on my YouTube community tab. When asking Gen Z and younger how many house parties they go to per month, I received 6,500 votes, and a resounding 88% of them said they have gone to no house parties at all. Before the pandemic was a regular base, maybe 1 to 2 per week. Now it's literally none all year long. I've never even been to a party in my entire life. House parties with the sense of distrust in our society are unimaginable. House parties in this economy? I think that last comment highlights the potential discrepancies in this data. Some people might have thought I was talking about 20-something-year-olds who own houses instead of parents. And I also had no way to verify the ages of the people participating, and some people might have just pressed the first option, which was 0, to see the results. Discrepancies aside, I do think that 88% of people answering with 0 is high enough to signal to me that my hunch is at least somewhat correct, and the scientific data that professional researchers have collected further confirms this. We are now seeing each other less in person, and when we do see each other, it is for less time. Loneliness is the biggest threat to the well-being of young people everywhere. And the decline of party culture signals the loss of a unique form of social bonding that shapes how we navigate social interactions as adults. Today I want to discuss why party culture amongst the youth is dying, what this means for the loneliest generation in history, and what potential replacements could offer similar social benefits. I am extremely grateful to have the opportunity to make high-quality YouTube videos for you guys on topics that I believe have the potential to change the trajectory of your life. I know a lot of you like the idea of using social media as a force for good, but you think you don't possess the skills to be a great video creator. So to help with that, I have today's sponsor, Motion Array. Motion Array is an all-in-one place for you to download video assets, sound effects, stock videos, and motion graphics for all of your videos. There's a ton of assets you can use in your videos that are as simple as just dragging and dropping them into your timeline, and I've even used a few in this video already. They also have new LUTs for you to choose from, which can make your videos look cinematic or moody depending on the vibe and color grade you're going for. And they even have an AI voiceover feature too if you're someone who isn't too comfortable showing their face on camera or speaking.
Cole Hastings has some goofy videos, but sometimes he makes some decent points.
Real. If I was a beginner creator and I wanted to make videos that rival some of the best content creators on any platform, Motion Array is the first place that I would start. So if you want to upgrade your videos without spending hours learning how to edit motion graphics and all these different effects, then you can go to the first link in my description and sign up for Motion Array. I'd like to give you teens a warm congratulations. While you may be the most mentally unstable generation in history, you are also the one who does the least amount of drugs. Since 1975, the National Institute of Health has been annually taking a Monitoring the Future survey given to students in 8th, 10th, and 12th grades who self-report their substance use behaviors. And for the past 15 years running, this survey has shown that substance use across these age groups has been trending downward. Gen Z and younger have easier access than ever to the influence of drugs thanks to the interconnectivity of smartphones and the internet, and yet they're interested in its usage less and less. Why? Well, a great place to start is the cultural shift that happened in the media in the early 2010s. Before a night out in college, it wasn't uncommon for my friends and I to watch a couple episodes of Jersey Shore to get us fired up to drink. Jersey Shore was a show on MTV that aired from 2009 to 2011, which featured a group of 20 to 30-something-year-old Italian Americans hanging out, hooking up, and doing a lot of partying. Almost everything about this show made drinking and getting shit-faced appealing to the average teenager. The drama, the dancing, taking a random person home from the club that you pulled, and of course, the fighting, which was particularly appealing to me during my frat bro era. Need I show the douchiest Instagram photo and caption of all time again? It was peak stupidity, and as stupid as it might sound, heavily influenced the clubbing and party culture during those years. However, there is one piece of media that could have arguably had an even bigger impact on the youth party culture when it came out, and that piece of media was Project X. In the same year Jersey Shore ended, Warner Brothers put out a party film starring 4 actors who had never starred in a major role, and the director basically just told them, alright, so you're supposed to be acting, but you'll actually just be partying throughout the whole movie. Hollywood despised it, and the reviews reflected their feelings. But to a teenager like me, it was everything I'd ever dreamt of. The unknown actors and the fact that it was filmed on a low-end video camera made the movie feel extremely authentic, connecting viewers with it even more. A party like this felt like it was actually attainable, and thus started a massive uproar in Project X-themed house parties all around the country. It seemed like almost every month after the movie's release, there was a new post or article talking about a real-life Project X-themed party that resulted in chaos for the surrounding neighborhood.
In Michigan, this dad got involved before the police had to.
No party tonight.
His son Mikey tweeted invitations to what he cleverly called a Project M party. Follow his Twitter account and it's clear the film inspired his would-be rager.
I even remember getting invited to a couple of them myself on Facebook. And for the really young people who don't know, Facebook was the biggest social media platform for teens back then, and the best way to get people to come to a party was to create an event on Facebook. Now, when we look at the type of media teenagers are watching today, what is the equivalent? Maybe Love is Blind, Too Hot to Handle, Love Island, Euphoria? None of those are depicting partying and clubbing in the same way. If anything, a lot of media now is geared towards steering young people away from partying, drugs, and alcohol, and they're making sure to highlight the potentially life-threatening effects of some of these drugs. The amount of adolescent deaths from fentanyl overdoses, for example, has increased in recent years. Many drug dealers are now lacing these party drugs like cocaine or pills with potentially lethal substances. And if I was a young kid growing up now, I'd be even more scared of these drugs than I was back then because you're always being exposed to the consequences. But even for the more mild stuff, more and more research continues to come out about just how bad these things are for you, which can be a huge turnoff. And the best way to avoid peer pressure to do these things would be to avoid the party scene entirely.
Ethanol produces substantial damage to cells. And it does that because when you ingest ethanol, it has to be converted into something else because it is toxic to the body.
It's clear that good health and a fit body is becoming the new cool amongst teenagers, and this is inarguably a wonderful thing. The ways in which we document these settings and what we do with this documentation has also changed. When I was a teenager, we did practically anything we could to get a cool video of us doing something crazy at a party. But if you do something like that now, you run the risk of ruining your life forever if it goes viral on social media. Teenagers crave validation from others. When we have little semblance of a concrete identity and everyone's just trying to fit in, we will often do irrational, unhealthy things just to appear as cool as everyone else. For my generation, that was the parties. It was getting into trouble in person and having the whole school talk about it on Monday. But now, where the peer pressure and attention has shifted to is the online realm. Based on what I've observed, teenagers would now much rather receive validation in the form of likes, views, and shares than a crowd of cheers from their friends and bystanders at a party. Teenagers can correct me if I'm wrong, and if you are a teenager, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but I'd have to assume that being popular is determined less by how much partying you do and much more by your social media presence now. I know I said that drug and alcohol usage amongst teenagers has heavily declined in the past decade, but there are a couple drugs which have only seen their usage go up. The amount of 12th grade students who used nicotine pouches like Zyn doubled from 3% in 2023 to 6% in 2024, and the amount of young adults who used marijuana daily or near daily or used hallucinogens in the past year was at an all-time high in 2021. These don't really represent party drugs to me. The way that I would categorize party drugs are drugs that enhance your social experience. And you could argue that Zyn fits that criteria, but I think the rise in Zyn usage more so has to do with the fact that teenagers are just looking for a cleaner way to use nicotine to help them focus. What I'd really categorize these drugs to be, especially marijuana and hallucinogens, are drugs that help you escape. Look at this graph again. The largest year-to-year increase came during a time when nobody was seeing each other, the 2020 pandemic. It coincides with the biggest drop in drug usage among adolescents and marks the most important year for the death of party culture across the world. Up until this point, I haven't made a very strong case for why this cultural shift has any downsides. Kids taking care of their health more and doing drugs less is fantastic. I was never trying to argue against that. But now we have to look at what has mostly replaced it: pure isolation. When the pandemic hit, teenagers who are now 18 to 19 years old were about 13 to 14 years old, and these are some of the most pivotal years for your social development. As adult maturation was put on hold, the only way to cope with the isolation brought upon by the pandemic was to interact with one's friends through social media or video games. An entire generation of young teenagers are now young adults, wondering why they feel so old yet so young at the same time. And the fact of the matter is, it's just much easier to feel like you're getting social validation without the messiness and potential embarrassment that comes with it in real life through the online world. In other words, teenagers are making less social mistakes. They are getting into less trouble, and that is translating into a generation of kids with inept social abilities. Along with that, there's far more pressure on social media to make something of yourself as a teenager. You're constantly being told that time is running out and you gotta retire your parents soon or you'll just be another brokey. And the prospect of having enough money just to live has become increasingly more difficult. House parties cost little to no money, but clubbing and drinking sure does. Do you think if you were a teenager, you'd want to have an experience like that and wake up hungover, less wealthy, and regretful the next day? Or would you rather ensure that you can afford an apartment in the future? This is purely speculative, but I honestly think that a lot of young people right now feel like they don't have the time to commit to strengthening social bonds in real life, and the result is this strange phenomenon where an entire generation of young people behaves like adults in some ways, yet their practical skills are stuck at a childlike level. With that being said, I don't really like the current adolescent experiences that have replaced party culture. They don't require you to interact with people face to face as much. There's less of an incentive to force yourself into social settings so you can get that much needed feeling of real social bonding. And while you greatly lower your exposure to obviously harmful drugs, you become less exposed to the types of opportunities that really get you to know more about yourself. The parties and clubs are where I had my first ever experiences with women in an intimate way. There, I learned how to flirt, how to tell whether a girl was interested in me or not, and faced painful rejection that I had to accept if I didn't want to be perceived as weak. It's also where some of the best conversations I've ever had were engaged in. Alcohol certainly comes with more downsides than upsides, and these days I abstain from it entirely, but it was the initial social lubricant that eventually led to me being able to speak well without the assistance of alcohol. I embarrassed myself more times than I can count, but those embarrassments fortified my mental toughness. My youth felt long and well spent because I created some incredible memories that mostly revolved around us going to or creating our own parties. And novel memories are the key to living a long, healthy life and feeling like you are actually living and you're not just some robotic drone doing the same monotonous tasks every day. Did I shave off a couple years of my lifespan to become a degenerate for a while? Probably, but I wouldn't change it for the world, okay? That's not true. Maybe I would change a couple really embarrassing things, but other than that, nothing. I don't want the usage of drugs and alcohol amongst adolescents to stop decreasing. Again, that is not what I'm arguing for. So the question we really need to be trying to answer is, how do we replicate the social bonding and identity construction benefits of party and club culture without exposing young people to potentially life-threatening substances? The answer to many might be obvious. Just find a third place. Find a place outside of your home or work that is meant for social interactions and creating friends, and you'll get the same sort of benefits. But a lot more effort needs to be put in by each individual if we are to have the same type of show out at third places that we had before the internet became the primary source of communication. With all that being said, while I don't want to encourage you young adults and teenagers to start drinking and doing drugs, I do want to encourage you to get into a little bit of trouble and take more risks. I think Dry Creek Wrangler School has a good little piece of advice related to this in one of his videos.
So just chill. Just chill. Continue to have fun. Now by fun, I'm not recommending you go out, drink your brains out at the bar and do something stupid, but my goodness, go hunting, go fishing, get a mountain bike, go hiking, go to the gym, go hang out around a barbecue fire with friends and just act silly and act goofy and be your age. Be your age and just embrace the process.
To add on to this, I would say, don't become the guy who's read 1,000 books on life and consumed all of this education, but cracks socially whenever they're presented with the opportunity to connect with someone in real life. Let life, with all its weird, unexpected, scary experiences that will almost surely result in failure and rejection, give you wisdom through those experiences. Party and club culture may be dying, and that's okay, but you can't become the person you want to be without scraping your knees from time to time. Making mistakes by yourself is beneficial, but making mistakes with others is transformative. You may have heard me use the term third places in this video. I like to talk about the rise of individualism, loneliness epidemic, and stuff like that, and how we can create solutions to it, and that's why I created this video, which is the rise of individualism. Goes deeper into the third places concept if you want to check that out. Thank you very much for watching this video. Now go get into some trouble.